in the Bible, it talks about the Christian marriage. It looks like, you know, the husbands ought to love their wives as Christ so loved the church, very sacrificially. And then when the lady feels that much love, she quickly submits to her husband, and they submit one to another. This is the ideal Christian marriage. Not all marriages look like this. And even the ones that are trying to look like this, we're still striving to look like this. It's still a hit or miss because we're sinful and we hurt each other and say the wrong things every day because we're imperfect in the Lord. The Lord is perfect. So I do want to share, though, that not all marriages are like this. There are toxic marriages for a variety of reasons. How you landed with this person, not sure. I want to share with you, and I wrote a blog post about it, about a woman who was in a toxic marriage, and her name was Abigail. She was married to Nabal. Well, Nabal was a scoundrel and a drunkard and, quite frankly, just kind of mean. It sounds like in the readings. So what happens is King David and his men were out in the wilderness surrounding Nabal's homestead, and they protected Nabal's animals while in the wilderness and didn't bother Nabal's men. Then David asked some of his men to go to Nabal and ask if they could come and be fed after spending all that time surrounding his property. Nabal, being impulsive and hateful and non-caring and sharing, said, absolutely, why should I do this for David? Who is he? So basically he questioned his identity and wouldn't return good for good. So David comes down and he's like, well, I'm going to take up my sword and we're going to deal with this and show him we will return his evil for evil. Well, Abigail, being a bright, beautiful, smart woman, decided that she would intervene once she got word this was happening. So she made all this bread and food and she put it all together, and then she intervened. And this is when I talk to clients about running interference, is how do you run interference on a bad decision? So she intervenes, she stops David and his men from coming down and obliterating her household, basically. It's not her fault that her husband's a fool. And so she intervenes and tells David and reminds him of his identity in the Lord and how that God's blessing him and who he is to become the king of Israel, and how she doesn't want him to have innocent blood on his hands. So Abigail did what I believe is the most profound psychology. She told David who he is in the Lord. She validated his person, and Nabal did the reverse. So she understood psychology even if she didn't know what it was. And she intervened, and David blessed her and said, thank you for your intervention and saving me from this impulsive act that I was going to do. Well, he was repaying evil for evil. So Abigail goes home, and her toxic husband is drinking and throwing a big banquet. Meanwhile, partying it up, and she recognizes that he's drunk. And when she sees that he's drunk, she does not share that she did an intervention for him in her household. And this is very wise. Do not talk to someone when they are high or drunk. They don't hear you. They're not present. And she used wisdom. The next day, when Nabal, her toxic husband, woke up, she did share that with him. And he was awestruck, it says. Just couldn't believe it. He was astounded that she ran intervention for him. That's a wise wife. So then what happened is 10 days later, God struck him down and he died. So Abigail used wisdom, discernment, and psychology to prevent destruction in her own home. That is a very wise woman. And she wasn't in the ideal marriage, and not all of us in the world are in the perfect marriage. And so David sent for her, and she became David's wife. So kind of like the best scenario, the Disney living there hereafter or whatever, happily ever after. That's what I was looking for. So if you are in a toxic relationship, there is hope. And if you're in an abusive relationship, get out. If you're being abused in any way, psychologically or physically, you have a right to remove yourself from that relationship. God does not want you to be harmed. It gets in the way of your purpose here on earth. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'll be writing the blog post and sharing it here in a little bit. And if you're interested in coming to therapy, we do have Christian therapist Hannah Eastman and myself, Linda Goad, and we would love to help you on your journey and your relationships, how to set boundaries, and just be your best self while on earth. Thank you. Coming from your counselor, Linda Goad.